Amy Pinnell with the Community Development Office for the town of Braselton, and we're here creating another one of our Buy Local Braselton Toolbox videos for you. And I'm really excited today because I have a guest with me. Alex Boulogne is with Pioneer Digital, and he's a marketing expert, and you've probably seen him around Braselton. We've done a couple of things with you before. And today we're going to really be talking about business branding. And I know this is something that's kind of near and dear to my heart because I know a lot of our local businesses struggle with this, and you have some really good information you're going to be sharing with us today. So today we're going to really try to focus in on a step-by-step guide that will help you build a really powerful brand.
You got it. Right on track.
All
Sounds
right.
good. So I think it'd be helpful just to introduce the concept of branding and define that down. And what I always call it is just the perception of your company. People go really deep. People will dive super deep into what branding could be. And we'll break that down step by step. But the perception of your company is ultimately what we're looking at. So listening to this video, guys, we've got a lot of resources that we're going to give to you to help you build out a step-by-step build out your brand. Sometimes people give information, but not how to do it. We're going to talk about how to do it today.
Okay,
Sound
cool.
good?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just dive right in.
Awesome. Sounds good. So, like I said earlier, the perception of your company is what we would call branding. Most people start with their typical elements when they build out a brand. That could be your logo, your type font, your typeface, your font, the colors, and your imagery. But if you create all of that and it doesn't mean anything, it's hard to have that represent a company when there's really no why behind everything. So I like to start off building a brand by talking about the elements that are never discussed, the elements that people leave on the table. There's 5 of them that I find very important to a brand. One being the value you provide, the experience you create, the story you tell, the message that you leave, and the action that you take. If you can define all 5 of those, it will completely elevate your brand.
That's really interesting because I think a lot of our businesses we're looking for something kind of catchy, something kind of cute or, that's visually pleasing. But gosh, there's so much more to it. You really need to be thinking a lot more because it really does represent your company and who you are.
Right, absolutely. So I like to use the example of Buc-ee's, the gas station. When you go in there, it's more than just a logo and it's more than just the slogan that they have. It's the value that they provide. It's the experience that you have while they're there. The messaging. Everyone knows that they're a valuable brand. When you're driving down the highway, those are the billboards that stand out to you versus the other gas stations, and that's because of what we just discussed. And they leave a really good story. They tell a really good story.
Yeah, it's so much more than just their little mascot, or their branding. They really are telling kind of that story and leading you along.
Right.
I love that.
Exactly.
It's a great example.
Yeah. So those are the elements that are never discussed. So the first thing you should do is sit down with a journal. Ask yourself, I'll read those off one more time. The value you provide, the experience that you create, the story you tell, the message you provide, the message you leave, and then the action you take. Write those down in a journal and define how your business can do that. And then we'll sit here and actually build out what we call the SB7 framework. It's a story. It's based off of the book called Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. To begin, building a brand is all about trust and credibility. I always like to use the equation trust plus credibility equals the recognition that you're gonna get. So this whole framework breaks that down, and it's like I said, it's 7 steps. So number 1, how to develop your brand. You start with your character, and a character is building your customer as the hero and not your brand. So what I mean by that is your brand a lot of the times comes in and swoops in as the hero, but it's and saying that they can solve all the customer's problems, but you want to make sure that the customer feels elevated.
Okay.
So sit down, journal about that, figure out a way that can be the case. Number 2, the customer is going to have a problem. There's multiple different problems. One is an external problem, which is what they are facing. One is an internal problem, which is how they feel about the issue. And then the last one is the philosophical problem, which is why it matters. And all of that combined, if you can answer what are the problems that they're facing that your brand can solve, your customer will take that next step to buy a product or service from your brand.
Okay.
We tracking here?
Yeah,
Does this all make sense? Okay.
Yeah, it's a little deep there. So let's kind of go back and break that down a little bit more. So we're really talking about services that you provide, who you want to be out there in the marketplace,
Sure.
right? And you want your brand to kind of represent that.
Yeah. So
Okay.
what we'll do after we explain each step is we can go back down and just break it down really simple.
Okay.
Right now we have a customer and we want to make them seem like they're the hero. Right?
Okay.
Our job as a brand is to make our customer seem like they're solving the problem on their own. And then every customer has a problem that the business and the brand is able to provide a solution to.
Right.
And that's how business works.
Yeah. Because I guess if you don't, then we got other problems.
Exactly. Yep. So then number 3 is they meet a guide. So the brand, like I said, should position itself as a mentor. And what we do is we just say, if a customer comes to us, and it's the same reason that we say the customer is always first, we always say we understand the customer, and we want our brand to represent that. So again, this isn't building out your logo, this isn't building out your messaging, this is building out a story about your customer from start to finish that you can build your logo off of. It's very important to have the background of all that, so there's more meat behind why a logo looks the way it does.
Okay. Yes. Absolutely.
Okay.
I think a lot of businesses miss that part. Do you
Exactly.
agree with that?
100%.
Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
that's where a lot of the value is laid on the table. So number 4, so we want to give them a plan. So if our goal is to have somebody come into our restaurant and eat, well, we got to tell them we want them to come into our restaurant and eat, not that we're just a restaurant in the local area. So in marketing, we have a brand. The brand, like I said, the brand's goal is to be the perception of your company. And behind that perception of your company, there's a reason. And we need to make sure that our customers understand the reason. And our goal as the brand is to give our customer a plan at how to interact with us.
Okay.
That leads us to number 5. And these two kind of go together.
Mm-hmm.
As we give them this plan, the end of the plan has a call to action. And your call to action is just what you're calling your customer to do. Hey, I would love you to come in and eat at my restaurant. Or hey, I would love you to click on this ad and buy something from my website. As simple as that. Buy now, visit, see more, stuff like that. Because a lot of companies miss the last opportunity.
Isn't it funny how, I find that a lot of times we're not asking for business. We're
Right.
like, I'm here, come. They just assume, business owners sometimes just assume that they set up and they're there. But we really do need to ask.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's all about boiling it down. If you give somebody so much value and then they don't know how to find that value, you're never going to be able to convert them into a customer. You're never going to get the customer to pay you money. So again, we're breaking down this journey of what the brand will do for a customer. Number 6. So we give them a call to action that helps the customer avoid failure. So what we need to do is tell our customer, hey, we have this product or service that if you don't buy, this is the alternative. Right? If you don't buy our lawn service, you're gonna have a ton of weeds in your yard. You're gonna have dark spots. You're gonna have worms. And if you start talking about the things that they don't have, then it's gonna entice them to do something more of what you're trying to, the convertible action.
Okay.
And then last is just telling them, hey, when you work with us, it's gonna end in a success. If we're talking about a lawn care company, you're gonna have the greenest grass in your neighborhood. You're gonna have the healthiest grass that your kids can go out and run around in and play in, and it creates great pictures. The landscape looks great. So now that we've boiled all this down,
Okay.
from number 1 to number 7, let's go back through it and just simply define each statement. Does that sound good?
Sure. Yeah.
Your brand starts with a character. That character has a problem, and that problem is met with a guide, which is your business. And after they come back to the guide, who is your business, you give them a clear plan with a call to action as to how they can interact with your business that helps them avoid failure, all the failures that they get if they don't interact with their business, that sets them up for success. Once we define every piece of that, and there is lots more of information you can dive down to, go to mystorybrand.com and you can see a template that can help you build all of that out, gives you a little bit more information. Then you can start to go in and build out your logo that represents all of that, and your messaging and your imagery, all the things that we discussed earlier that people just jump the gun and start there before talking about the why behind.
We've done so much to get ready to open up, or you've been doing it if you've been doing it for a really long time, you've got a really good investment already. So it really is worth the time to kind of go back through and figure these things out.
Absolutely. And this is one of those things that I want to make sure our audience understands. When you sit down and plan all of this out, you need to make sure that it's not something that you set once and leave. If you look at Starbucks has had multiple logos. The New York Yankees, it's one of the most iconic logos of all time. Think about how many times that's changed over to represent the new brand that they've become. This is something that you start with and it builds onto it, and when you build onto it, you go ahead and change into the new company that you become, because this is what represents your company.
Right. So I was about to ask, is it okay to update your brand? I know some people get so attached to something, but what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. So I like to have a document, just a Google Doc or a Word document. And a working document means that you continue to go back and change it over time. So as your brand changes all the time. Your company changes all your time. Your brand should represent your company.
Right.
So it's one of those things that you should continuously change as a brand, your identity, and it should change all the time. So yes, is it okay? Long story short, absolutely. It's more than okay. It should be expected.
All right, so now that we have gone over these SB7 framework, these 7 steps, let's talk a little bit more about how we implement that into our strategy.
Of course, yeah, and that's the most important part. To do all of this and not take action on it, well, there's no point in doing it. So let's say you write all of this out. You follow the guidelines that's on the internet. You can find it online. There's PDFs. You write all of this stuff out, each 7 steps. And then this is how you implement it. Consistency on all platforms is what creates a good brand. So if your website looks different than your social media, which looks different than your YouTube videos, that looks different than the shirt that you wear, some people are going to think that you work for 7 different companies.
Right.
So we want to make sure that everything looks the same, especially if you have a team. If you have a team of multiple people, they all need to understand the problem that you're solving, so they all talk the same way about your company. So social media, word of mouth, website should all reflect the SB7 framework. Yeah, it's all about having consistency among all your platforms. That way, everything that we talked about in the SB7 framework reflects your brand everywhere, and that's the most important part. I think Jeff Bezos calls your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room, and that all leads down to consistency. You got to remind people more than once, more than twice. I like to say at least 7 times what your brand is for them to remember you.
All right, we have been talking a lot about brands, and I know you probably have some really great resources for those that are really kind of wanting to do their own research. What would you recommend?
Yeah, number 1 would be Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. I've got the book right here. This is what it looks like. It's everything that we talked about today, way deeper. It's a short book, and it will prompt you to take action. It's awesome. We didn't have time to talk about it all today, so check it out. Great book. The website that goes along with this is mystorybrand.com. That talks about the SB7 framework. It gives you a template to fill out that you can type in all the information for, and it'll walk you through exactly how to do each section. So highly recommend that. And then on a side note, one of my favorite books, and a book that my core values for my company, one of the core values is based off of is Fans First. And that's written by Jesse Cole, who is the founder of the Savannah Bananas. For those who don't know who that is, he is this awesome entrepreneur. I took a traditional business model, changed it around, and did something completely different that's, in my opinion, absolutely crazy, but in the best way possible. He's created such an audience, he's created such a following for this baseball team, and he talks about every single way he did it. He talks about his journey, how he started, and how he continues to evolve on a daily basis. And as you're building your brand, it will give you a great perspective at how you can stand out in this world by doing something as simple as owning a mom and pop shop. Every business has to have a brand, because if you don't, no one's going to remember you.
That's right. So it's really important to be thinking about this. Alex, thanks so much for joining us today and talking about this. It's really important to think about your brand. And, if you have any more questions about that, reach out to us. We'll be happy to get you in touch with Alex, and he can give you some more one-on-one information about that. So thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. My main goal is to help as many people as possible. So if you ever have anybody that wants to talk branding, I love it. I'm a nerd about that stuff, so just let me know.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.